Hello Year 9. We are on to our sixth lesson on the suffrage movement, thinking about this inquiry question. Was violence the driving force behind women gaining the vote? So it's about women gaining the vote, and we're looking at what was the reason, what was the cause, the driving force, or the main reason. And was it violence, or was it some other reason that caused them to gain the vote? Today, we're thinking about the different causes, the different types of causes, and how we can become more sophisticated in explaining those different types. So it's a lot about language, and we're going to go on a bit of a tangent, but so that we can apply it back to our event in order to really become sophisticated in our explanations. Bit of a recap to get us started. Top right, the suffragists. This was where we started our inquiry. We thought about the peaceful protests that they did to try and gain the vote. Next up, we looked at the suffragettes, the bottom right, and they were more direct, they were more militant in their action. Next up was World War I. Women were proving themselves in the labour force, were doing men's jobs in order for the success during World War I. And then finally, we looked at social changes in the 1900s, in the 1800s, in the 19th century, and particularly this Chartist movement that helped men get the vote and followed by women gaining the vote later on. So 4 different causes, all helped, but all helped in a slightly different way. You remember trying to judge which one was more important, which one was the driving force, even though all had a role to play. And today we're thinking about how can we explain or describe those causes really, really well. So we're going on a tangent now, and we will apply it back to the suffrage movement afterwards. Our inquiry is still at the top, but we've got a change now, a change of event and a change of causes that we need to be thinking about their role. Starter, why was Gary thrown out the window? Gary was thrown out the window because Mrs. Smith gave Mr. Murray the thumbs up sign. Do you agree? Pause the video, think to yourself. Would Gary be thrown out the window because Mrs. Smith put a thumbs up? If not, why would he be thrown out the window? Gary's our fictional character today. Once you've had a thought about that, we're going to move on. We would have given a story out, but I'm going to go through that story with you as we're doing it remotely. So, question, reminder, why was Gary thrown out the window? Your task, first of all, what were all the different causes or reasons, same word, or same meaning, sorry, for being thrown out the window? So we're going to read through, and you need to spot how many. See if you can count up. The event that sparked Gary being thrown out the window was his failure to bring in his homework that day. The main underlying cause, however, was that Gary had never learnt to organise himself. This was why he'd missed his 9 previous homeworks. The fact that Gary's parents had never taught him manners also contributed to his demise, because it was Gary's rudeness that had provoked Mr. Murray into action. The situation was also exacerbated by Mr. Murray's stressful day marking GCSE coursework. Throwing Gary may also have been accelerated by his cheering classmates who gave Mr. Murray the extra encouragement he needed. Then Mrs. Smith's decision to give Mr. Murray the thumbs up was the final trigger that led to Gary being thrown out of the window. The most important root cause was his lack of organisation. If he had been organised, he would have completed his previous homework, and he certainly would not have been thrown out of the window. So, pause the video. Think about that question. What were all the different causes, reasons? See how many you can find. Make sure you pause, because I am moving on. So, these are the ones I spotted. Failure to bring in his homework, never learnt to organise, missed 9 previous homeworks, parents had never taught him manners, Gary's rudeness, Mr. Murray's stressful day, cheering classmates, Mrs. Smith's decision to put her thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different reasons. Have I missed any? So if we've got 8 different causes, how on earth are we going to explain how they were different causes but all important, and how maybe some were more important than the others? You've had a chance to read through it once. Second question, what role did each cause play? So each one of these white bits, white causes, how do we know what role they played? I'm looking for language, so I want you to pause the video again and spot, can you find any key words that help show or explain the different roles each cause played? Pause the video, I'm going to move on. So I have highlighted them and put them in a different colour here. The event that sparked Gary. The main underlying cause. Contributed, exacerbated, accelerated, trigger, root. These are all what we'd call causal vocabulary or causal language. Language that helps explain different causes or the role of different causes. So an underlying cause in the name is underneath everything else. It was an important cause from the beginning. Something that exacerbated or accelerated made things worse. They were already happening, but then this made the process worse. Something that sparks or triggers something is almost like the final stage, the final cause that pushes them over the edge. And this is the kind of language and the kind of way to write that we want to be practicing in this inquiry. Because there's 4 causes, there's more in the suffrage movement, but 4 we've looked at, we need to be thinking, well, what was the underlying cause? What exacerbated the process? What accelerated? What triggered, sparked? And then with all that knowledge, which one was therefore a bit more significant or important? So as you can see, these are the different words, and I've added in maybe one more. We've got different times that these causes were part or were happened or when they took place. So at the very foundations or the beginning, the root, you've got root maybe, underlying, you've got fundamental or the foundational cause. When causes happen a bit later but speed up the process, you've got accelerate, contribute, exacerbate. And when they're the final causes, so at the very end of the process, you would have trigger or sparked. And I want you to be using these words when you're explaining why the suffrage movement happened and why women gained the vote, so what was most important. But back to our sort of tangent today, to get you practicing using these words, that was our statement. Gary was thrown out the window because Mrs. Smith gave Mr. Murray the thumbs up sign. I want you to write a paragraph, much like I wrote earlier, that gives your opinion. Do you agree that it was the thumbs up? Or do you disagree and you think it was other causes and that other cause was, or the other causes were more important? And you're going to do that in a form of an exit pass on Microsoft Forms. So your teacher will set that in the assignments, and I want you to write in not a sentence, not 2 sentences or 3. I want you to write a paragraph using different causes, so maybe 3 or 4 different causal words, all from here. And you can look back at the story as well, but to explain your point, because the better practice you get at this, the better your explanation of the reasons for women gaining the vote will be. So that's going to be your first task. Now, when we come back to thinking about the suffrage movement, we've got our 4 factors here. Showed you earlier, but the Chartist movement or the social changes, the suffragist movement, the suffragette movement, and World War I. And we've got some keywords like sparked, accelerated. This is going to be on the back of your knowledge organizer, and this is going to help you when next lesson you start thinking about using the skills you've learned today to put it into practice of the suffrage movement next lesson. And as you say, you're going to start assigning Is one of these the underlying cause, the root cause? Is one the trigger? Is one an accelerator, an exacerbator, a contributor? That is for you to think through and work out when we get to next lesson. So you want to be thinking about that already. So next lesson, you are going to be doing a little quiz based on all the content so far. And you're going to be preparing perhaps, or maybe just straight answering the inquiry question above. And when you're explaining it, I want you to be using at least 4 of the causal words in your explanation and using specific examples from the lessons, from the knowledge organizer and any evidence to help prove your point, prove that it's underlying, that it's accelerating, exacerbating, that it's triggering. Okay, so we need proof as well as the use of those causal words. So for the rest of the lesson today, after you've done your exit pass Microsoft Forms question on why Gary was thrown out the window, you've got 2 more tasks. And this is to develop your knowledge of more of the events that led to women gaining the vote. And you're going to use the web page at the bottom, which gives you a bit of a timeline, the knowledge organizer on the next slide, and any other research you can do. Step 1, I want you to create a detailed timeline of the events leading to suffrage. Could be in your book, could be on a bit of paper, on the computer, whatever works for you. But you need to use this to help you remember. So it's got to have lots of the events, but also to help you remember. So it's got to stand out, have colour, have images drawn or taken from online, and creativity. Okay, it's got to help you remember those. And second part, I want you to create more revision resources, colourful, maybe images, creative again, that help you remember the key facts, the key people, and any key terms. Thinking about that knowledge organizer, thinking about what you've done in previous lessons. And that will help you do the quiz next lesson, but also help develop your paragraph about the inquiry question. Really good examples we want you to send us. Show us the brilliant work that you are producing. So if you've made an incredible timeline or you've made some great revision resources, please email your teacher so we can see and praise that brilliance that you are doing. And all of this skill is really developing your understanding then for when you go next week into thinking, was violence the driving force behind women gaining the vote? Looking forward to seeing all of your ideas. Well done, Year 9, and keep up the really brilliant work that you are doing.